In the Loyalist prisoners' hunger strike that year, it was Robinson who negotiated with the government on the prisoners' behalf.
I make no apology for working for the prisoners, and when I get letters from them, they are dealt with as promptly as I can.
Do you regard them as terrorists?
I regard them as counter-terrorists.
Not terrorists?
But they are counter-terrorists. It's a fact of life.
When you say you regard loyalists who have killed and bombed and maimed in all the same sordid ways that the IRA have, when you say that you regard them as counter-terrorists, you make it seem as if they're a sort of anti-terrorist police force, or they have some sort of legitimacy. Is that how you do it?
I think the only distinction that there can be that they wouldn't have been there in the first place if the authorities had countered the terrorism themselves.
Why have you never condemned the UDA or the UVF by name for their atrocities?
I have condemned actions that have occurred both by Protestants and by Roman Catholics.
But not by name, not the UDA and UVF by name.
I mean, so what? What is that supposed to mean to anyone? If I condemn actions that occurred, I would have thought that the person or the organisation who's responsible for such action is condemned by them.
You use the word assist, and surely you know that the word assist in UDA terminology is a euphemism for muscle, power, strong-arm tactics, illegal activity. Well, why have anything to do with it?
That might be what it is in your mind. As far as I'm concerned...
what are you talking to them about? What are you talking to them about? The weather? The weather? Or?
This seems to be about the 10th time you've asked the same question, and I expect it's going to be the 10th time that you get the same answer. I was asking them, within the terms set down by the two Unionist Party leaders, to give their assistance in the stoppage.
What I want to ask you is this: why should the Chief Constable invent a reason for banning a parade? I mean, if there's the slightest danger to law and order, surely you, as a responsible member of Parliament, would take the advice of a professional policeman, wouldn't you?
The danger to law and order occurred when the British government implemented an agreement that didn't have the support of the community. If they, as responsible politicians, were in the least bit concerned about law and order, they would never have tried to impose upon an unwilling majority an agreement that they didn't accept.
But the Chief Constable was convinced from his own intelligence that
there was nothing of the sort. You might believe that, and you might fall for his propaganda.
Well, no, I mean...
I live here, and I'm not going to be mug enough to fall for it as well.
There were men in masks, there were men burning things, there were men lobbing rocks, there were policemen burned and shot out of their homes. If that isn't paramilitary involvement, what is it?
Well, you know, you make these ridiculous accusations, which are very interesting.
Well, the incident reports are there. I mean,
if you want
go
to
and look
ask
at
the second question before I've answered the first, then you at least let me know that, and then we can end the interview.
Isn't it, in fact, the case that you choose not to be as outspoken against Protestant paramilitaries as you might be, simply because, in the end, you know that they will provide the muscle, which you think will help change Mrs. Thatcher's mind?
If you have the democratic process operating in a country, you don't need muscle from any source. It is because the Prime Minister has refused to respond to the ballot box and the vote of the people in Northern Ireland that people are now saying you cannot win through politics, you have to use other means.